Welcome to r/Reddit Revenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story. Tired traveler couldn't bear the obnoxiousness of two loud New Jersey passengers, so she boldly offered to switch seats to ensure peace, causing laughter. The second story. Incompetent manager paid me late, triggering penalties that turned a $200 paycheck into $800. The third story. Amidst family drama, a young person teamed up with their brother's ex to enact revenge by reporting him to the police. The first story. Be quiet on my red eye or be humiliated in front of half of an airplane. So I'm on a late-night flight from NYC to Salt Lake, traveling home after visiting family for the holidays. The flight was landing in the early morning hours, 1 a.m.-ish, so I was trying to catch a nap before I had to drive another 2.5 hours from the airport to actually get home. Boarding was exceptionally slow that day, so I and the people nearby had been sitting in our seats for close to half an hour, and we hadn't even started to taxi to the runway. Everyone is either settling in for a nap like me, or setting up to quietly read or otherwise occupy themselves, because it's the middle of the D night. Now, let's introduce our characters. Me, tired traveler who wants nothing more than the sweet, sweet neck cramps from a fitful airplane nap. Wholesome Granny, delightful little old lady who just wants to put on her reading glasses and finish her Nora Roberts novel. New Jersey Bro, dude who apparently spent his entire Christmas and New Year's trying valiantly to get alcohol poisoning. Loud New Jersey Girl, basic B whose hobbies include binge drinking and self-tanner. For the record, I know D's come from all 50 states. New Jersey does not have a monopoly on a-holes. I just mentioned because they both had particularly grating Jersey Shore-style accents. B had a voice like the nanny and the accent of Janice Soprano. So our seating arrangement was thus. Left side of the plane from window to aisle, loud NJ Girl, me and Wholesome Granny. Right side from aisle to window, NJ Bro, some poor B trying to sleep, and a snoozing middle-aged guy who apparently can sleep through the apocalypse. So from left to right it was loud NJ Girl, me, Wholesome Granny, aisle, NJ Bro, poor B, sleepy dude. So apparently NJ Bro decided he fancied Miss Self-Tanner from Newark. So he strikes up a conversation. They realize they have some college friend in common, which leads to a discussion about partying over college break. Now, I partied in college. I probably also had stupid conversations about it. But my conversations never occurred while leaning across multiple sleepy air passengers on an effing red eye at volumes that could drown out the jet engines. Loud NJ Girl is essentially screaming in my ear, and Wholesome Granny looks vaguely horrified at the loud discussion of various debaucheries. At some point, everyone in the back half of the aircraft has now heard about Jaeger bombs on New Year's Eve. Everyone, including my poor, exhausted self. People are uncomfortably looking around with increasingly angry expressions. Everyone wants to be polite, but everyone's getting peeved off. I exchange a few piteous glances with poor Wholesome Granny. I realize that if nobody tells these fantastic fratty partiers to STFU, I'll probably get no rest and fall asleep at the wheel when I drive home. Good times. So I should mention that I'm very awkward. I once apologized to a woman on another airplane after she hit me in the face with her Kate Spade bag. Standing up to a stranger isn't in my DNA, but as a chronic insomniac, I value my effing sleep. And after 30 minutes, even I had had too much. So I turn to my right, look at NJ Bro and say loud enough to drown out the screeches of sorority Fran Drescher, I will switch seats with you if you use an inside voice for the rest of the flight. Please, you can have my seat. For a brief millisecond, there's silence. NJ Bro freezes in his seat and turns red. Loud NJ Girl scoffs and makes some outraged sound. Oh geez, I think. Did I just sound like a total a-hole? Then glorious laughter. Every passenger who's awake within 10 rows chuckles. More scoffing from loud NJ Girl. NJ Bro has the grace to look embarrassed and says okay quietly. We switch, so now he's between NJ Girl and Wholesome Granny. At least they're together now. I settle in and then the woman in the seat directly in front of me turns around. It's a younger mother with 3 kids. A toddler, a lap baby, and an older kid absorbed in some cartoon on an iPad, wearing headphones because she isn't a sociopath. She says, I have 3 kids, including a baby, and she's never made as much noise on a plane as those guys. A few more chuckles. They do quiet down somewhat, though poor wholesome Granny's peaceful reading of her book is occasionally interrupted with laughter that sounds like a parrot trying to imitate an epileptic chimpanzee. At one point I hear giggling and see loud NJ girl trying to stealthily take my picture from behind the in-flight menu. Since cell phone cameras cannot penetrate opaque laminated cardboard, it's pretty obviously not stealthy when I see the flash. Though my awkwardness makes me panic at that point, I realize that being shamed as a bee on Instagram by someone whose personality consists of Appletinis probably isn't that tragic. When we land, NJ bro deplanes with a red face and a bowed head. I get a priceless glare from NJ girl. Life is good. But wait, there's more. I ran into someone I knew at the baggage claim. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it happened. So I start chatting with her and rant a little about the total D-bags that sat near me, leaving out no critical detail or unkind thought. We laugh. I see my bag, pick it up and prepare to return to the most distant of economy parking spaces to drive my totally bad-A Toyota Yaris home. And when I turn around, I see the NJ buddies. It's clear they were standing close enough to hear every word. I make eye contact and stumble off to glory. Haha, well done. Your reaction to the noisy passengers was just crazy, and you did it with such wit that everyone around you just couldn't stop laughing. Your balanced decision to switch seats with NJ Bro looks like a real lifesaver for everyone who was sitting next to you and wanted to have a quiet rest. Firstly, your character descriptions were great, especially Basic B, who loves to drink alcohol and sunscreen. You gave each character such a vivid image that the reader could easily imagine this situation. And the final scene with your friend on the luggage belt was just exquisite. Those who stood by and listened to you were really surprised and tried to hide. And seriously, who cares if they heard you? They deserved it. Some people have zero self-awareness. Thank you for the smile. I think you handled that beautifully. Poor Granny, though. The second story is... Bad manager delayed my final pay by 2 weeks and ended up paying quadruple the amount and getting in trouble. The store manager at my old retail job was completely inept. He never really went on power trips, just wasn't good at his job and blamed us for it. Well, the time came for me to move on, so I gave about 3 weeks notice even though common practice is only 2 weeks. Labor laws in my state require the employer to give you your final paycheck when you leave at the end of your last shift. My check wasn't ready. No big deal, he said he'd have it within the next couple of days. I was moving to a different city, but I was going to be living with family, so no rent to worry about. I could wait a couple of days. 2 weeks go by and I've moved and started my new job and still no check. My new job paid on the 1st and 15th, but with how the pay period is, I started at just the wrong day, so I wouldn't get paid until about my 3rd week. I was pretty much out of money. A family friend works in HR and said I should look into the laws around final payment. Turns out there's a penalty for each day that last check is late. I had been working with corporate HR, but they weren't trying to help at all. So I started fighting back. I brought up the law and the penalty. They told me I was wrong. I quoted the exact labor law code and read the paragraph on late payments to them. I got handed off to a manager. It's amazing how quickly things get sorted out when you quote labor laws to them. I was headed back to my previous city that weekend to visit family, so they assured me the check would be waiting. When I walked into the store, the manager clearly wasn't happy with me. I was good friends with the other employees, so they filled me in. Apparently, corporate tore him a new one for not cutting my check on my last day. He was shooting me dirty looks until I walked over to the manager's booth to collect my check. Then it was all apologies and meekness. My last check should have been around $200. With all the penalties, it ended up being almost $800. He did not last much longer with the company and lost his job in a few days. This manager chose the wrong person to exploit his ineptitude. You were persistent and correctly referenced the law, which forced him to find a solution quickly. The manager was not doing his job at all, and his failure gave you the opportunity to win this battle. When you started demanding your money, you began to realize that he was trying to delay your payment, and this led to his end. Instead of $200, you ended up with almost $800 in late fees. If anything can go wrong for a manager, it's clearly gone wrong. It's important to know your rights and protect them, especially when you're dealing with an incompetent manager. You coped with this task and won by receiving ridiculous compensation. Now, this is a great example of how sweet the taste of victory over incompetent bosses can be. Your manager obviously had no idea that you were going to tell him his own responsibilities. The third story is, I teamed up with my brother's ex to get revenge on him. This drama is a few years old at this point. It happened during one of my lowest points in my life. Now that I'm finally healing, I wanted to share this small bit of revenge that I'm still so incredibly proud of. For context, I need to give a bit of backstory. TLDR of this section is my brother is a violent, manipulative piece of SH to everybody in his life. I, 24, lived with my brother, 25, for a little over a year during 2020 to 2021. I'd always been very close to him, since we were so close in age. For a long time, I deluded myself into thinking his SH actions were acceptable. I mean, all older siblings hit their kids' siblings, right? About 6 months into us living together, he started bringing his new girlfriend around, and about another 4 months later, we all moved into a new apartment together. I got along great with his girlfriend. We had pretty similar personalities, so banter came easily. I still talk to her regularly even. Back to the point. My brother was never a good boyfriend. He burned through women all the time, but of course all of them are the crazy ones, right? You'd think that would be different if he was willing to sign a lease with this girl, but far from it. They fought all the time, to the point that I would just leave the apartment to go on a walk with my dog for a few hours anytime I could feel the tension about to boil over. Eventually they broke up, and he forced her out of the apartment somehow despite her being on the lease. This was fine. I guess bummer, that almost lost a friend since he threw a tantrum anytime she showed up to get some of her things, or even just to visit. It wasn't much longer until we got new neighbors, 2 18-year-old girls and a couple of guys around 21. My brother made fast friends with them. Only problem, these 4 were awful people and racist. For almost the entire time we lived together, I had a dumb joke painting of a TikTok quote I made hanging in the living room. One day I noticed it was suddenly sitting on my desk when I got home from work. Whatever, maybe the command strip wore out, so I hung it back in its place. The next day I got home and lo and behold, the painting is back on my desk. I walked out to the living room to find him and our new neighbors, drinking and engaging in unsavory conversation. I asked him, "What's up with the painting?" Instead of my brother answering, I heard from one of the girls something along the lines of, "Some people don't want to have that SH shoved in their face." Immediately I asked her to leave, because I won't go back in the closet, not for anyone. She refused, so I got a little mad. Might have called her a B. If I didn't, I should have. After the 3rd time asking her to leave, my brother started claiming that he just doesn't like the painting, that he's never had a problem with for a year and a half. Things rapidly escalated. Without getting into too much detail so I don't bum people out before the good part of the story, he assaulted me. By the end of the next hour, I had a broken nose. He got a small bruise on the back of the head from a flimsy curtain rod I attempted to defend myself with. The cops were called, of course, and somehow, despite the obvious physical indicators of who's the bad guy, I was the one who ended up in jail that night because I used a weapon, the flimsy curtain rod. My mom picked me up in the morning and took some of my things and my dog from the apartment. I've been living with her since. Okay, here comes the part about the revenge. I was using my mom's phone for something about a week later, and saw a text from my brother about his plans to throw a party in his apartment for his birthday. I was enraged. How dare he act like he didn't just lose the one person who stuck by him despite his abhorrent actions for years. So I devised a simple but effective plan. I called up his ex, who was still living in the same city, and asked her to swing by the apartment complex to see if he was doing what I suspected, serving alcohol to minors. Remember that 2 of the neighbors were under 21. She was more than happy to oblige after his abuse, manipulation, and rape. The night came and we kept in contact, and she confirmed that an F-ton of people were there, including the 2 underage girls. So we enacted phase 2. She called the police. I had to mostly stay out of it due to the protection order the city put against me while my case was being settled. Normally I detest calling the police on a party, but GD it, I was angry. Still am. By the end of the night, he was facing charges for serving. I think 5 underage people. He was facing a fine he couldn't afford to pay, and eviction due to the multiple incidents involving police. Personally, I don't think I went far enough. I'm still no contact with my brother, and I'm still battling PTSD from the night. Hopefully this act of catharsis helps me heal some more. Some physicality between brothers is to be expected, but what he did was extreme. I hope you filed charges against him for assaulting you. After that kind of beating, you had a right to defend yourself with that flimsy curtain rod. It's called self-defense. I hope things are getting better in your life, OP. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Have a good day.